When a Sumatran tigress finally falls pregnant after years of trying to conceive, the staff at the zoo are overjoyed. But when the first cub appears to be lifeless, they are heartbroken for both the tigress and the species as a whole. However, a few seconds later, something unbelievable happens. The sudden silence was deafening. 1 moment ago, the staff at the Australian zoo had been cheering like they just won the lottery, but now they all looked on in shock as their prize Sumatran tigress's first cub lay motionless on the floor of her enclosure. Zara, the mother, seemed puzzled as well. She instinctively nuzzled the cub, gently licking its head clean of fluids and blood, waiting for it to cry and meow. But the cub remained silent. The veterinarians on standby started writhing in their seats, eager to jump in and try to resuscitate the cub. They knew they were supposed to let nature run its course, but standing by and watching Zara's first cub die on camera was almost too painful to bear. However, none of them was as heartbroken as the mother herself. Zara lowered her head so she was crouching right above the cub and let out a powerful roar as if trying to wake it up from its slumber, but the little tiger didn't move. She pawed at it, first gently and then more roughly. The caretaker shivered at the sight of the powerful Sumatran tigress handling her cub with little care. They could all feel her fear and frustration and were worried that she might lash out soon. Zara kept licking her baby, instinctively knowing that her rough tongue on its tiny body might stimulate the lungs and force it to breathe. The veterinarians silently cheered her on from the other side of the enclosure, their eyes fixed on the screens. Perhaps she would bring her cub back to life gently, without showing any aggressiveness, they hoped. But unfortunately, their worst nightmare came true when Zara suddenly grabbed the cub with her teeth by the scruff of its neck, stood up on shaky legs, and let the little tiger fall on the ground. The caretaker screamed in shock, horrified by her behavior. The tigress then grabbed her cub's body again and started dragging it back and forth, almost as if the poor thing was nothing but a doll. The zoo staff was heartbroken at the sight. Zara was not reacting to motherhood as well as they thought, and given her bad mood, the life of the second cub she still had to give birth to would soon be in danger as well. The caretakers shed bitter tears, thinking about all they'd done to ensure that Zara not only had the most comfortable pregnancy possible, but that she felt pregnant in the first place. Right now, all their efforts appeared fruitless, and they started worrying that they might have wasted several precious years on a tigress that did not, in fact, dream of being a mother. Zara, the magnificent Sumatran tiger, was born at the Australian Zoo and had always been a beacon of hope for her species. She was part of a species that only had 400 individuals in their numbers, which made her extremely special. Our arrival had been celebrated with great fanfare, not only because of her beauty, but also due to her unique lineage. Zara's parents had been part of a critical conservation program, and she represented a new chapter in the efforts to bolster the population of Sumatran tigers, which had been dwindling alarmingly in the wild. From a young age, Zara exhibited traits that made her stand out. Her coat was a deep, rich orange with stripes that seemed to dance and shimmer in the sunlight. Her piercing green eyes held the wisdom and intelligence that belied her years. As she grew, she became a favorite among the zoo staff and visitors alike, enchanting all who laid eyes on her. In fact, she was the main attraction at the zoo, often having little children visit her regularly. Her playful behavior would often come out when the kids came to visit, convincing the staff that she would one day be a great mother. This is what made the challenges she faced so heartbreaking. Despite her beauty and charm, Zara's life was not without obstacles. As she matured, the zoo staff hoped that she would play a crucial role in their breeding program, just as her mother had done before her. After all, Every successful birth of a Sumatran tiger is a victory against the tide of extinction. However, as the years passed, Zara struggled to conceive. Multiple attempts were made to find a suitable mate, but each effort ended in disappointment. The zoo's veterinarians and staff were baffled. Zara was in perfect health, and all signs pointed to her being able to conceive, yet time and again she failed to become pregnant. This was extremely concerning and heartbreaking, especially considering the maternal behaviors she so often displayed. Besides the need to repopulate the species, the staff couldn't help but feel sad for Zara. They were convinced that she was missing out by not being a mother. With every failed effort to conceive, the pressure mounted, and the staff grew increasingly anxious. They knew that each passing year was a missed opportunity and a race against time. Soon enough, her fertile window would pass too, and she would just be an old lonely tigress. That was until her knight in striped armor came into her life. In a final desperate attempt to help Zara conceive, the zoo decided to bring in Raja, a robust and genetically diverse male tiger from a zoo in Indonesia. Raja was known for his strong lineage and had successfully sired cubs in the past. However, this wasn't an easy feat. The process of transporting Raja to Australia was fraught with difficulties. It required meticulous planning, extensive paperwork, and coordination between international wildlife authorities. At one point, the Australian authorities almost didn't allow it, citing concerns about the possible diseases Raja could bring with him. However, after much protest and further paperwork and medicals, he was finally allowed in. Little did they realize how their decision was going to impact Zara. The journey was long and arduous. Raja had to be sedated and placed in a specially designed crate for the flight. Every detail was carefully monitored to ensure his safety and comfort. When he finally arrived at the Australian Zoo, there was a palpable sense of anticipation and hope. Introducing Raja to Zara was a delicate process. Tigers are solitary animals by nature, and the staff had to ensure that their introduction would not lead to aggression. For weeks, they were kept in adjacent enclosures, allowing them to become accustomed to each other's presence. Gradually, supervised interactions were allowed, and the bond between Zara and Raja began to form. Then, before they knew it, the much-anticipated moment arrived. After months of careful monitoring and gradual integration, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. Zara and Raja mated successfully. The staff watched with bated breath, knowing that even with this success, the road ahead was still uncertain. Zara's previous struggles to conceive weighed heavily on everyone's minds, but as weeks turned into months, Zara began to show signs of pregnancy. The joy among the staff was tempered with caution. They knew that the journey was far from over, and they remained vigilant, monitoring her health and behavior closely. Every change, every symptom was meticulously recorded and analyzed. While they hoped for the best, they were preparing for the worst. The pregnancy was not without its challenges. There were moments of concern when Zara's appetite fluctuated or when she appeared restless. At one point, her once very healthy appetite quickly dissipated into her not eating for 2 days. It was very hard for the staff to watch and not react unnecessarily. Of course, the zoo's veterinarians were on constant alert, ready to intervene if necessary. Zara, sensing the importance of her condition, seemed to take extra care of herself, and her maternal instincts were kicking in. Her once boisterous and energetic attitude was now a quiet, regal one. Her demeanor was calm and serene, as if she understood the precious cargo she carried. It was definitely a beautiful thing to witness for the staff, considering how long they had worked with her for this very purpose. As Zara's due date approached, the anticipation and tension within the zoo reached a peak. The staff prepared meticulously for the birth, setting up a special enclosure that would provide Zara with the privacy and comfort she needed. She wasn't too keen on it at first, but then she made it her own. In the wild, she would have made herself the nest to give birth anyways. In this way, they were just doing it for her. They needed to keep a close eye on her, even though she would be shielded from most humans for her safety. So cameras were installed to allow for remote monitoring, ensuring that the staff could observe without causing her any stress. 2 days before the expected birth, Zara began showing signs of labor. Her movements became more deliberate, and she frequently lay down, breathing heavily. The staff watched attentively, ready to step in if needed, but cautious not to interfere unnecessarily. They had to trust that Zara knew what to do instinctively, but while they knew that a natural birth was the best outcome, they were prepared for any eventuality. As the hours dragged on, Zara's labor progressed slowly. The staff's anxiety grew with each passing moment. They knew that complications could arise at any time, and the lives of both the mother and her cubs could be at risk. Despite their training and experience, they couldn't help but feel a deep sense of helplessness. Nature had to take its course, and all they could do was wait. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Zara's labor intensified. She roared in pain, her powerful body writhing as she prepared to give birth. The staff watched in breathless anticipation, their hearts pounding. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the culmination of years of effort and hope. With a final mighty push, Zara gave birth to her first cub. The staff leaned forward, their eyes glued to the screen, but their joy quickly turned to horror. The cub lay motionless, its tiny body limp and lifeless. Shocked by what they saw before them, they waited anxiously to see what Zara was going to do. Exhausted and distressed, she began to nudge the cub with her nose, her calls of concern echoing through the enclosure. The staff felt a wave of despair wash over them. They debated whether to intervene, knowing that any action could further distress Zara and potentially endanger the second cub, which was yet to be born. Time seemed to stand still as they grappled with their decision. But then Zara's instincts kicked in, and she began to lick the lifeless cub with fervor. The staff watched in awe and disbelief, their hearts aching with hope. Was this going to be enough to bring the cub back to life? Would she be able to save her very first cub with this impromptu cardiac massage? But when she grabbed the little tiger and began dragging its lifeless body on the floor, they suddenly realized that she might not be trying to revive it after all. The poor cub just flopped limply from side to side, helpless and incapable of defending itself from its mother's attack. Zara's actions were rough and scary, and the veterinarians decided they would only wait 1 more minute before stepping in and taking charge. The sight before their eyes was just heartbreaking. But just when the staff were beginning to feel sick to their stomachs at the sight before them, a miracle occurred. Slowly, miraculously, the cub began to show signs of life. Its chest heaved with a tiny labored breath. Zara then continued to lick, her efforts relentless. The cub's movements grew stronger, and soon it let out a weak but unmistakable cry. The staff erupted in cheers, tears streaming down their faces as they realized that the tigress had, in fact, been willing her cub back to life with any means possible, even if it meant dragging its tiny body around the enclosure. One of the veterinarians explained that she was possibly trying to kickstart its breathing by pushing on its lungs with each hit. Against all odds, Zara had brought her cub back to life. She did have what it took after all. But the celebration was far from over. After cheering excitedly at the cub's survival, the staff were reminded that there was still another little tiger to be born. With bated breath, they turned their attention back to the new mom, waiting to see what would happen next. With the first cub now breathing and squirming beside her, Zara turned her attention to the impending birth of the second cub, which was less dramatic but no less miraculous. Zara's labor was swift, and the cub emerged healthy and full of life. Zara immediately began to clean and care for it, her maternal instincts now in full force. The relief and joy among the staff were palpable. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a testament to the strength and resilience of nature. The news of Zara's successful birth spread quickly. Soon, the zoo was on national news, showing everyone the miracle and wonder of Zara's cubs. Visitors flocked to see the new family, and donations poured in to support the ongoing conservation efforts. Zara and her cubs became the new hot celebrities of the town. In the days and weeks that followed, the Tigress proved to be an exemplary mother. She watched over her cubs with unwavering devotion, teaching them the skills they would need to survive. The little tigers grew quickly, their playful antics delighting visitors and staff alike. Each day was a reminder of the miracle that had taken place and the importance of the work being done to protect these magnificent creatures. The successful births marked a turning point for the zoo's breeding program. It gave the staff renewed hope and determination to continue their efforts. Zara had proven that she could bear healthy cubs, and so they hoped that she could continue to do so going forward until she could no longer. Just like her mother before her, she was positively contributing towards her species' population whilst, of course, fulfilling her maternal needs. Luckily, Zara's story didn't end there. In fact, it was just starting. As the years passed, her cubs grew and matured, with the hope of them becoming parents themselves. The bloodline that had started with her continued to flourish. She had given birth to 2 females, Sahara and Sohelia. Alone, they represented so much hope for the species. Conservationists only need 1 male to repopulate a species, but more females. Through the birth of her 2 daughters, Zara had helped to secure many more cubs to come. The 2 tigers were kept at the Australian Zoo with hopes of having successful pregnancies, just like their mother and their grandmother before them. Today, the Australian Zoo continues its work, inspired by Zara's legacy and committed to the conservation of endangered species. The story of Zara and her cubs serves as a beacon of hope, a reminder that every effort, no matter how small, can make a difference in the fight to protect our planet's precious wildlife. The staff that worked alongside her used her as an inspiration whenever they were faced with challenges. After all, if they could achieve what seemed impossible, what couldn't they do?